Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So we are back again, this time with the latest Psychic Awakening book, The Greater Good, and we have some interesting bits of the lore from that book to go through. Again, this is all down to a chap over on the 40k lore Reddit called Shaskais. He is an absolute gentleman, legend as he always is. He always gets a book and points out like all the greatest stuff in there. Really, please, before you watch this video, the link to his thread is in this description. Go and give him a like and stuff like that, because without this chap, these type of videos cannot be possible. He's really doing the Emperor's glorious work. So some notes he actually put at the beginning of this. He says the book, as well as the upcoming Psychic Awakening books, are written by a chap called Callum Davis, one of the three background writers of GW. He states that barely a quarter of the Force Sphere expansion made it out of the warp. The Force Sphere relish fighting humans and have committed such horrible atrocities that it left both Shadow Sun and the Ethereal Council haunted. Many of the Force Sphere commanders have been subjected to ritual punishment of the Malk Lal. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, because with Tau I always seem to pronounce it wrong. Anyway, the Tau versus Death Guard is the first main subject to go across. The first pages of the book covers the Death Guard attack on the Starside Nexus at Nem Yatul. The immense Death Guard attacked with sudden and terrifying force, launching diseased ordnance and boarding torpedoes at the defences of the Starside Nexus. Despite being caught by surprise, the highly disciplined Tau reacted with speed and many of the Death Guard ships were destroyed, though the durability of the Death Guard ships meant that a large number more survived to deliver their cargoes of thousands of filthy, joyous warriors of Nurgle. Reports started to come in that the Tau were succumbing to the Death Guard diseases, though none could explain how it was possible for the Gullal disease to infect the Tau. Some orbital stations were so ravaged by the diseases that their commanders chose to self-destruct them to stop what befell them from spreading to others. Shadow Sun then arrived at the Starside Nexus and identified the threat as a Death Guard. She said that they cannot be allowed entry through the Starside Nexus lest they pass into the main Tau Empire and attack it. Her battle tactics were to break up her forces and direct them to offer so many targets that the Death Guard Armada would be forced to break apart. Casualties enormously mounted for both sides. Despite the growing number of destroyed Death Guard vessels, it seemed that the skulls of the Death Guard ships were going to make it to the Nexus. In a rare moment of doubt, Shadow Sun thought it might be impossible to win, so she sent a message by an advanced prototype messenger drone through the Nexus to warn the Tau forces on the other side of the Starside Nexus, and this is called the Zone of Silence. It then says some Death Guard vessels managed to enter the Nexus. The Death Guard ships that were left behind suddenly started to withdraw and make a retreat to a warp jump point. The Tau chased and destroyed what they could, but many escaped. On the other side of the Nexus, in the Zone of Silence, the worn Tau forces prepared and waited for the arrival of the Death Guard, but nothing happened. Months passed and not a single Death Guard ship appeared. It remains a mystery why the Death Guard chose to attack the Starside Nexus, and where exactly did they go? Did they achieve their objectives or not? Regardless, the Tau know that the threat is not over yet, and the defences of the Starside Nexus were increased, and the battle data was to be investigated for clues. This next title is called General Information about the region. So it says the Kalnath Expanse is a mess suffering from disaster after disaster. Pirate orcs, scattered Tyranid fleet elements, highly successful Genesteal Cult uprisings, and finally the Tau arrived to make things more miserable for the Imperials there. The Tau did not expect to contend with the Genesteal Cults for the souls and minds of the humans. Data and autopsies revealed that their cults are monstrous genetic hybrids of both Tyranids and humans. Debates rage among the Earth caste on how this was possible, but they all agreed that the Genesteal Cults must be purged with extreme prejudice. The Tau took advantage of the anarchy of the Expanse systems to forward their agendas, but they were surprised not only by the presence of the Genesteal Cults, but also by the reports of miracles that manifested around the Imperial priest caste members. More reports talked about an anomalous behaviour. Sometimes outbursts of insanity occurred, not only in the Imperial masses, but within the ranks of the Gu Vasa as well. Hopefully, again, I'm pronouncing that right for the Tau, I'm so sorry. According to the Genesteal Cult legends and holy holy text, the coming of the Star Children will be heralded by a great veil of shadow and silence. The opposite was happening. The Genesteal Cults observed an increased psychic potential in the humans and increased Magnus births within their ranks. Many saw this signs that the Star Children deemed them unworthy, and so they must fight harder to prove themselves to their deities. Now, the next 3 sections are all about different worlds. So you've got the war for Ashok Aureus, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. You've got the war on Hepios and the war on Vorothion. Hopefully, again, I'm probably pronouncing them completely wrong, but we'll start with the first one first, which is the war on Ashok Aureus. So this one says, the world that Shadowsun targeted is a cardinal world of Ashok Aureus, a planet rich with wealth, priceless relics, and faith in the Emperor. The leaders of the planet rejected the Tau's offers of peaceful unity in the most brutal fashion. The humans sent 7 heads of the Tau peace delegation, which were presented to Shadowsun. 5 heads, 1 for each caste, in 5 gilded large chests lined with red velvet. The humans had shown that they know the difference between the Tau caste. The death of the Ethereal especially enraged Shadowsun. She resolved to make an example of the Gular for their barbarity, and also motive other human worlds to submit to the Tau more peacefully. The Tau discovered the united front presented by Ashok Aureus was a thin sham. The planet was politically divided and factionalized. The Tau exploited the divisions to form alliances and raise the Gulvasa forces to wage a shadow war that would destabilize the planet. While this was happening, Shadowsun collected data to form a picture of future battlescapes. One of the reports that got sent made mention of multi-armed monstrosities and drawings of serpents and worms in the underground hidden area of the planet. The Tau at this point didn't know for certain what these beings were. Mutants, perhaps, he states here. The weak genes of mankind often produced ugly and mutations and freaks. So there's like something in the underground as well. By the time Shadowsun finished her preparations and launched her invasion, the planet was on the brink of civil war. Not even the threat of a Xenos invasion would unite the people of Ashok Aureus, but those who intended to resist readied themselves well and armed and zeal, creating well-fortified bastions. At the street level, the priests whipped the masses of soldiers and civilians into a frenzy of Xenos hate. The Tau saw no point in attacking the formidable defenses of the Imperium. Instead, they deployed in districts more friendly to the Tau or in open areas, choosing to launch a hit-and-run campaign across the world. The Tau military and technology superiority gave the Tau the edge in the conflict through the hope of the Imperial surrender never came. The faithful Imperials were doggedly stubborn in their resistance of the Tau. Worse still is there has been reports of miracles manifesting to aid the Imperials, blinding light that had skewered human charges into fire warrior lines, flying priests that carved up battle suits mid-flight, and many more occurrences that defied the Tau understanding of physics. Some elements of the Guvvezla have witnessed these miracles, screamed their repentance, and turned their weapons on their allies. And this isn't the end of the mayhem. Outbreaks of insanity became frequent among the humans, the same kind of insanity that befell the humans when the Great Rift opened. As before, the Tau that spoke of strange creatures climbing from the ruined corpses of the insane humans were quarantined and sent to special hospitals. The increasing brutality and savagery of the Guvvezla forced Shadowsun to withdraw them. Torture, mutilation, and worse were being committed by the Tau human allies, and it could not be tolerated, especially when they frequently disobeyed orders in which they risked themselves and others. Where humans fought humans, such insanity and other stuff became more frequent. Shadowsun reasoned that if the humans' greatest strength is their faith, then it's also their greatest weakness. She would focus her efforts to topple the greatest cathedral city on the planet, which should break the faith of the Gular. The outnumbered humans fought well and actually managed to surprise Shadowsun by massing a trap which forced the Tau into months of guerrilla warfare, but their defeat was eventually they continued to refuse to surrender. When the supplies of the city defenders ran low, they had no choice but to make a massive breakout attack. They They nearly succeeded, though they came close to overrunning the Tau in the western districts of the city, with battle companies of tanks and tens of thousands of zealous troops. The disciplined and advanced technology of the Tau saw their breakout offense stemmed and then defeated. Finally, the back of the Cathedral City defenders was broken, and the Tau mobbed up the remaining pockets of resistance. The starving and scared humans were either cut down fighting or surrendered to the Tau. Finally, the Cathedral City was in the Tau hands, and then they began demolishing it and projecting its destruction throughout the planet. The intended effect that Shadowsun had hoped for did not come to pass. The destruction of the Cathedral City, instead of demoralizing the humans, further strengthened their resolve to fight on. With profound sadness, Shadowsun realized more blood would need to be spilt because humanity's unreasoning, suicidal drive to fight on no matter the cost of lives. After the conclusion of the battle, Shadowsun walked aboard the medical ship. She walked through the bunks filled with the wounded and dying, filled with those who had lost their limbs or their minds from the horror. The medical ships were so filled to capacity that the dead had to be ejected into the void. Shadowsun watched as the dead floated into space. Normally, they would be honoured in funeral ceremonies in which their bodies would be burned, but there was no time for that. She knew that the fallen would not begrudge this. It was done out of the necessity for the greater good. Battle still raged on, and Shadowsun vowed that their sacrifice would not be in vain. The next one is the War for Hepios. So this is the second battle of the book that happens on a densely populated mining world of Hepios, a planet with vast quantities of metals and promethium, a planet with a serious Genesteal Cult problem. The planet was cut off from the Imperium, which means no black ships. Thousands of psychers were being stockpiled in custody with nowhere to go. The governess of the planet decided to offer freedom for those psychers in exchange for helping seeking out mutated and rogue witches. Those that complied were spared, those that did not were cooled. It did not take long for the Genesteal Cults to start its uprising. During the war, the Tau sent emissaries, met with the governors and made offer of unity and peace. They offered to help in eradicating the Genesteal Cults. The desperate governess was close to agreeing to the terms of the Tau before the Imperial priest that had survived a terrific battle spoke to her of a Xenos foe with large war suits. This foe killed both Imperium and Gene cultists with equal impunity. Upon hearing this, her faith in the Emperor was restored, seeing it as a sign from him. The governess refused to bow to the Tau and returned to directing the campaign against the vile Gene cultists. One of the Genesteal Cult subsects is called Daughters of Devotion, or female Genesteal group. He's putting a question mark. Well, that's what he's saying. Is it an all-female Genesteal Cult group? He doesn't know. After a grueling and costly war, the Imperium regiments finally defeated the Genesteal Cults, just as a smile appeared on the governess' face for the first time in months. At the prospect of re-establishing contact with the Imperials, she received dire news. A Xenos fleet was approaching her planet. The Tau have arrived. And the last war is the War of Vorothian. So the third battle is on the hive world of Vorothian. We are met with a familiar face, the Genesteal Cults known as the Pauper Princes. The arrival of the Tau motivated the princes to hasten their operations before they worked for its seized by the Xenos. The Genesteal Cult agents infiltrated the political circles of the planet and used their now numerous and empowered magi to dominate and influence the minds of officials to cast votes rejecting the Tau. The Genesteal Cults used the similarities between the faith and the greater good to subvert the Tau Guvaza allies and turn them. When the Tau offers of peace were rejected and the Tau came the Tau came in force to the planet, they expected to be welcomed by their cultive Gulvar allies in prepared landing zones. What they got instead is a Genesteal Cult trap. The Tau landing was a massacre. Numerous Tau gunships and transports were shot down, and those that made it to the ground were overwhelmed by Genesteal Cult hybrids and cultists. But not all the Tau were so easily overcome. The distrustful force sphere cared not for humans and welcomed They did not care for the human welcome and made an assault landing regardless. They cut down rushing gene cultists and secured beachheads. The more aggressive Fifth Sphere commanders also made successful landings, though they were immensely pressed. With this opening play, the freeway war of the Hive world began. The Tau continued to be a thorn in the Genesteal Cult side, though they failed to gain a real foothold on the planet. They used their advanced tactics and advanced tech to bleed the cultists. The Tau also were prepared to stand with the Imperials against the Genesteal Cults. The Genesteal Cults managed to defeat the Imperial Guard forces guarding the principal Hive city, Generatorium. The destruction of the Generatorium sealed the fate of the principal Hive city. Soon the whole city belonged to the Genesteal Cults. Despite this great victory, many of the other Hive cities stood across the planet, some in hands of the Tau, others in hands of the Imperials. The war is far from over. The Pauper Princes have much work to do before this world is graced by the Star Children. And some plot devices right at the end, which he lists, or should I say plot threads. He says, Wart Spiders destroyed a platoon of Imperial Guard and retrieve an ancient Aldari relic armor. Magnus possibly has the gene seed of both Grey Knights and Dark Angels who were left behind, who were basically dead. He makes a point of kill, main, burn, kill, main, burn, kill, main, burn. He says the World Eaters are on the move, it seems. Oh, that could be really, really good. Admech forces fighting Iron Warriors report encountering new machine beasts of unknown types. The Admech report 11 plus varieties of machine beasts that have yet to be classified. And, he's put, maybe new dinosaurs coming and stuff like that. So there we go. That is all the lore, the main plot points from the latest book, The Greater Good. Again, massive shout out to Shaskais over on the 40k lore. Please go and check his thread out. Again, it's in the description of this. Click it, like it, give him all the praise in the world, because without him, this type of videos, and we won't have all these awesome summaries that he does. He's been doing it for every book so far. He's an absolutely gent. So thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Of course, leave your thoughts, feedback, everything like that down in the comment section, and we'll have a nice little chat about it down there. See you now, and bye-bye.